Hey YouTube, today we're going to start a series about doing something a little different than what I usually do on the channel. I'm going to compare side by side two of the same model of guitar, and this is the IYV ILP-400 in Cherry Sunburst, and both of these I purchased off of Amazon for about $200 with tax and shipping, delivery, and I was blown away by the first one. I bought it just before I moved, and I saw them come back up on Amazon. I said, I'm going to grab a second one, and then we can compare them and see what kind of quality control situation we have with this company looking at two of the same model of guitar. And as we'll be looking at in this episode, we'll be looking at basically the coloration, the fit and finish of these models, and side by side comparing them. So stay tuned as we look at this comparison of two IYV ILP-400s. So here is Exhibit A. This is the first IYV ILP-400 that I purchased a few months ago, and I didn't get to do a whole lot to it because I almost immediately moved after acquiring it. It was one of the last guitars I got before I moved, but I was so impressed with it. And you can see the finish is, for a $200 guitar, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. Amazing quality on it. And I was so impressed that when I saw another group of them, I said, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and get another one. This thing is way nicer than the price would suggest. And I figured it would be a pretty solid investment, because much like Fireflies were this way, that they had an explosion into the market, a lot of people got them, but they get bought out very quickly, and the models become harder and harder to get, especially the older ones. And so you can, even though they're budget, with Firefly in particular, I've had very good luck with being able to clean them up, turn them over, and actually make a little bit of money because they're so well sought after. And I believe that IYV is a similar company in that regard, that as people recognize the excellence of these instruments, that they will become more and more sought after. So this is Exhibit A. And so here is Exhibit B. This is the one that we purchased shortly after moving into my new home, and I saw them come back up on Amazon for the same price, and I said, oh man, that is such an incredible value. These guitars are just so well made, played excellent right out of the box, and so far I haven't done anything significant to either of them in terms of anything beyond very basic setup. And so one of the things that we're going to do with these is side by side keep one of them strictly stock, out of the box stock, and the other one start tinkering on and doing all my processes and so forth. And so this go around we are just going to be comparing them and seeing how good is their quality control, how similar are these two instruments, which are identical models. So stay tuned and we'll take a closer look. So here are the two side by side, and it's immediately noticeable that the coloration is quite different, and both of them are actually quite beautiful. The style of them really reminds me of PRS, but the first one that I purchased is more like a tobacco burst. It is darker and browner. And then the second one, these are marketed as a cherry sunburst, and this is a lot closer to that. It reminds me of the vintage sunbursts, very popular in the 60s and into the 70s. It's got the red that goes into a dark burgundy and a much more yellow top, whereas this one is much more brown. It is closer to a tobacco sunburst. Both of them, though, really beautiful, and actually gives me two instruments of identical build that have slightly different finishes. So as from a collecting standpoint, I like the variation. Now, the question being, you got to roll the dice. If you buy one of these on Amazon, are you going to get one like one of these, or is it going to be even different? You know, who knows? So one aspect of quality control is definitely that there's some differences in the paint, and it's entirely plausible that IYV is basically experimenting and under one model doing slight changes to their color palette and seeing, you know, which finishes people like more or something like that. But you know, it ought to be really marketed as two different finishes, a tobacco and a cherry. And, you know, so that is an issue with quality control, I think. But again, it might be just marked up to them being a relatively young company and still testing the waters. Now, both of mine have the trapezoidal inlays in the fretboard, which I'm thankful for because I like that better than in the Amazon listing. There's some of the pictures have this, and some of them have a dot inlay where it's an offset dot, and I really like this a lot better. And both of these are of that, and the coloration on the fretboard is very consistent. Both of them have a nice warm fretboard. These are very wide and thin necks, makes for really great bends and so forth. And then you get into the headstock and you have that modified fleur-de-lis on them. Very well done. Now again, you see some difference with experimentation. You know, check that out. That you have two different headstock logos, right? And so I think this is mainly chalked up to, you know, variations in the model run on account of them experimenting, seeing which one of these resonates better, which one tests better, you know, that sort of thing. But it is interesting to catch them at this phase where they're putting out, you know, identical models with rather significant stylistic differences as they're still settling in and finding their exact sweet spot. Flipping them over now and checking out the back and neck, once again you can see a very quick distinct difference in the tone there. That the Tobacco Sunburst one is on the right and it has a much darker, browner hue on the back, whereas the lighter Cherry Sunburst has, and this is more, in my opinion, reminiscent of Gibson here, the way that you have this very nice translucent cherry that really shows off the wood. The Tobacco Sunburst style is also very nice, but you have to get closer to see any wood grain and it just doesn't quite show off as much, but you have a darker stain. And so if that's more in your aesthetic, you know, here, and this is a great feature of this model where you have these completely seamless heels and beautiful craftsmanship on that. Just feels so nice in the hand, and something that you almost never see on budget instruments. That is a very fine feature to have on something at this price point. Now in the next episode we'll come back with a caliper and actually sit down and measure all this stuff to see consistency. But right now just looking at the fit and finish, and you can tell there are distinctions, you know, primarily in terms of the stain at this point. But as we saw, the headstock, the logo was different, and just looking at them side by side, I can already tell you there's a little difference in the headstock shape itself. Not tremendous, but a difference that the caliper, I'm sure, will elucidate for us. And so right now though, you know, the quality of these is quite excellent. The quality control, I believe that they are essentially in a season of experimenting and trying out models, trying out fits and finishes and, you know, logos and so forth. When they really settle fully into themselves and establish themselves as a brand, I see these becoming more of a collector's item, because this is tremendous value for the level of guitar that you get. And both of these have been completely playable right out of the box. I've been playing them both, and primarily been spending time on the Cherry Sunburst, but both of them play tremendously well. So come back next time. Our next episode will be sitting down with these and a caliper and, you know, just looking at the measurements. How close are they? So thank you for watching. You have a wonderful day.